Well, hello and welcome. I'm Misheard with Misheard Song Lyrics Podcast. Today is season 7, episode 350. The misheard lyric is, there's no comfort in the truth. Pain is the heart you'll find. Correct lyrics is, there's no comfort in the truth. Pain is all you'll find. Whore and all, very close, and you can't unhear it. So I'm singing, obviously, a George Michael's misheard song lyric. And the last time we did any kind of George Michael wham, wow, was back on December 22nd, 2021, season 3, episode 121. I can't believe 5 years is almost past. And we did his last Christmas where the misheard song lyric was a crowded room, friends with tie-dye. And it's really friends with tired eyes. So let's talk about this whore you'll find and what Careless Whisper is about. Because I thought I knew for years because I was a teenager when this came out. And I learned a lot. So let's begin. Careless Whisper is obviously a song by English singer-songwriter George Michael. And it was part of the duo Wham! And released as a second single from Wham's second album, Make It Big, in 1984. Yours truly had the cassette tape somewhere. I know I've seen it just recently and even still has a receipt from when I bought it in 1984 from the Fred Meyer here. It's a local store here in the northwest part of the state of the United States called Oregon. So that's how deep this cut is. It was produced by George Michael and written by him and his bandmate, Andrew Ridgeley. The single was actually credited to Michael as part of his transition to a solo career, which we now know, very good solo career. Unfortunately, plagued with some drug abuse and arrest until his untimely death. Careless Whisper is what they call a contemporary pop song with some R&B and soul, and has definitely that sexy sax part that actually was composed by George Michael, and you'll see why in a bit how important that was, and played by Steve Gregory, okay? Michael composed it as a teenager, this song, and recorded several versions of it, auditioning several saxophone players before he was satisfied. And obviously it did well. It topped the charts in the UK, the US, and several other countries. It's one of the best-selling songs of all time, selling more than 11 million copies, which a bulk of that, as you know, was done old-fashioned way, going to the record store, not download, including 7 million of that in the US. And it's been covered by many acts, including Brian McKnight, Seether, Roger Williams, Kenny G, and Julio Iglesias, so beloved by others. Let's talk about the background, because I touched a little bit on, I gave you a teaser that he wrote it in his teens. So the story was he wrote Careless Whisper on a bus, the age of 17, when he was traveling to his job as a DJ at a restaurant near Bushey, Hertfordshire, okay? And apparently he had the song in his head for the last 3 months. He wrote in his autobiography, which was called Bear, and I need to read that he based the lyrics on events from his childhood. In it, he said, Careless Whisper was us dancing because we danced a lot, and the idea was we are dancing, but she knows, and it's finished. And I did some more digging around, according to songfacts.com, when he wrote the song, he was, again, on the bus, and it actually, also there's another story that says he was a usher at a cinema, so probably had multiple jobs as a 17-year-old, and that's where the inspiration stuck when the reference of the silver screen comes from the first verse. And then famous line that people just love is, guilty feet have got no rhythm, which really showed his innate talent for the mature songwriting that he had as a youngin', and then later on when he perfected it when the song was actually released. Andrew Ridgeley, his Wham bandmate, also wrote the chord sequence on the what they call Fender Telecast for those guitar nerds. He received for his 18th birthday. And Michael singing the saxophone line, that's how you knew how the sax should have gone. The pair worked on the song at Michael's home in Radlett at the basement flat in Peckham where Ridgeley was living, okay? That's how magic starts. Both Michael and Ridgeley recorded the first demo at a Porta studio with a local producer by the name of Paul Mex in Ridgeley's family home back on January 18, 1982, for then just a fee of £20. Wow. It featured a Dr. Rhythm drum machine, an acoustic guitar played by Ridgeley, and a bass guitar played by Dave West. Michael's voice was recorded with a microphone attached to a broom handle. I love that. I love seeing that or visualizing that. But did you know That recording only took one take, as they spent most of the session recording a demo for their song Wham Rap, Enjoy What You Do, which I love that song too. Then on March 24th, 1982, George Michael recorded a more complete demo, including a backing band at Halligan Band Centre in Holloway, London. And according to the Wham manager, Simon Napier Bell, the saxophone part was recorded by a hobbyist friend of Michael's who lived nearby. Michael wrote that hearing Careless Whisper recorded with the band was one of the most incredible moments of his life. That day, he said, I finally believed we had a number one material, and he knew it. On Michael's final night working as a DJ, he played with Careless Whisper demo and wrote in his memoir, they never had it before, and the floor filled. The floor filled. I remember thinking, that's a good sign. So he tested it too, all right? Smart guy. So now we're in production part of the song, and Careless Whisper was not included in the first Wham album, Fantastic, in 1993. Remember, I mentioned it was part of their second album for 1984, Make It Big, and they did with that cassette album. That year, Michael recorded a version with producer Jerry Wexler at the famous Muscle Shoals Sound Studio in Sheffield, Alabama. Wexler booked Tom Scott to perform the saxophone part, but Michael was not satisfied with his performance. This is where the genius and perfectionism comes out from George Michael's. He would hum the part to him repeatedly, asking for adjustments. Napier Bell recalled, quote unquote, after 2 hours, he was still there while everyone in the studio shuddered with embarrassment. I mean, he knew the sound he was looking for. Though Wham manager Napier Bell and Wexler could not hear what was missing from Scott's saxophone performance, Wexler trusted Michael's intuition and felt it would be risky to release a song. So he speculated that the saxophone player on the demo had used incorrect fingering, creating a different feel, and that Scott was just too good to get it, okay? So then Michael wrote later that the version was too middle of the road, he said. It just didn't have any of character or his character in it. He said he'd been in awe of Wexler and been nervous with working with him. George Michael took Wexler's advice to add a keychain and saying it was a cliche. Now, we move on to Intervision Records, and they had planned to release Careless Whisper in 1983, and Michael's song publisher, Dick Leahy, was able to stop the release as Michael controlled the copyright. He said, we knew how big this song would be, so it was necessary to upset a few people to stop it. Again, knew the vision of the song. Additionally, George Michael was committed to touring with Wham to promote Fantastic and felt it would not have made sense to release Careless Whisper as a solo single at that point, so he kind of held it back. A few weeks after the Muscle Shoals session, George Michael contacted a Chris Porter, who had produced some of Wham's second album, Make It Big, and had asked him to help record another version of Careless Whisper. He just wasn't happy with it. They recorded it at a Sam West Studio 2 in London with a live rhythm section, and Michael felt the results were a little bit better as he was more relaxed, and the Sam musicians did a great job, but the saxophone part has still not been recorded. And according to Porter, they auditioned 11 saxophone players before a Steve Gregory who could perform the main phrase in one breath, which if you're a saxophonist, that means a lot. I'm just me thinking a phrase of notes in one breath seems like a lot to do. Saxophonist Gregory said he was the 9th audition, and another player, Ray Warley, waited until midnight for Michael to arrive and went home, giving his position. Gregory, so that's how it all works, right, with the universe. And according to Gregory, the part would have been easier on an alto saxophone, but George Michael insisted on a tenor saxophone, and Gregory's saxophone was unable to play the top note without the use of fake fingering. At Gregory's suggestion, Porter lowered the recording by a semitone by slowing the tape. That's just interesting. Gregory performed the part in a lower key using the proper fingering, and the recording was returned to the original speed, where Michael was finally satisfied with the saxophone part. Ridgely wrote, quote unquote, at last a nuanced melody that had lived inside his head for so long found expression from a saxophonist with soul and sensibility as well as virtuosity. Wow, that's a lot on Gregory, being the 9th saxophonist, to try to attempt this. George had recorded his first masterpiece, and nobody was more pleased than I was. And then Michael recorded his vocals at an Ad Vision studio in Fitzrovia, London. Lots of many iterations, finally got it. Well, how did it do? Well, we're not surprised. It was released on Wham's second album, Make It Big, in 1984, like I mentioned, released on a single on July 23rd of that same year, and entered the UK singles chart and reached number 1 2 weeks later, pushing out True Trides by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I don't even remember that song. It stayed at number 1 for 3 weeks and became the UK's 5th best-selling single that year, and it reached number 1 in 25 other countries, including where I was growing up, the US, and hit the US Billboard Hot 100 in February 1985. It was named Billboard's number 1 song of that year of 1985. And I remember it like it was yesterday because I was a young 13-year-old then when I first heard Careless Whisper, not knowing what it was all about. The Careless Whisper single was credited to Michael as part of the strategy, like I said, to transition him to a solo artist sooner than later. Michael told the media it was issued as a solo record as it did not fit the style of Wham, but told his management that Wham would break up. Here it comes. In the US, where Wham was less known at that time, it was credited to Wham featuring George Michael because they were smart. Everyone knew Wake Me Up Before You Go, so let's use Wham first featuring him because he wasn't a famous solo artist yet to be, right? And per Song Facts, I love the use of the song. I just want to let you share that Oakland A's outfielder by the name of Josh Reddick began using this as his wake-up tune in May 2024. It was a very unusual selection since most hitters prefer something more aggressive when they come to bat. He uses Careless Whisper, but he chose a song on a lark, as I said, after hearing it in the clubhouse and went on a hot streak as soon as he started using it. He got 2 hits each of the first 3 games after picking it as his jam. So there's something there. Cameras would catch teammates and fans singing along to the song when Reddick came up, when Careless Whisper was played. I love that story. Okay, let's go to the music videos because I had not seen it since MTV days. Back in the 80s, seeing it as an adult versus a 13-year-old me, big difference. So in YouTube, it was actually uploaded way back on October 25th, 2009. So this October will be 17 years. It's at a whopping 1.5 billion with a B views and counting. And the interesting thing is, he looks hot. I'm just going to say George Michael looks amazing and his hair looks amazing, even though I've seen many reports he was not happy with it. Even had his sister flown in because it was very Princess Di looking. At the time, they had the same haircut. So he looks great in an Italian suit. He's setting up in front of you. What he's going to be talking about is the affair, which I did not realize. It's about him cheating on his loved one and knowing that it will never be the same. That's how he sings about it. So the music video was directed by Duncan Gibbons, who actually directed Club Tropicana, another fun video, and shows George Michael as the guilty man having an affair, and his acknowledgement that his partner, a gal played by the name of Lisa Stahl, is going to find out that a woman by the name of, well, we're going to just call the other woman here, but she was played by model Madeline Andrew Hodge, lures George away. The funny thing about this misheard lyric is I said pain is the whore you'll find, is the moment it's sung in the music video, it corresponds exactly when the model, again played by Madeline Andrews Hodge, is having an affair and looks over her shoulder at the same time. Like literally perfect timing. I don't know how that worked. Then cuts to that same model and the bow of the boat in a white bathing suit that reminds me of another 80s video band, Duran Duran's video, Rio, on a sailboat. So it had that kind of same look. I died later on when you see that, the affair has happened. We see George Michael waking up, or kind of early waking up, in red satin sheets. So cliche of the 80s. After the lovin', let's say, and that's when the famous sax solo is playing, the elusive one that he fought so much for, in the background. And then the sad thing is at that time, the door opens, his lady love walks in on him asleep while his whore, quote unquote, looks over with a sly smile. I wanted to see what ever happened to the woman played by the other woman, Madeline Andrews Hodge, and sadly, I found our obituary. So it was from 2012, so 14 years ago. It says here, Madeline Andrews Hodge of Model Millennium passed away April 8th, 2012. So just last month, it was 14 years ago. And that's all it says. And it's that the funeral home where it was located in Mississippi. So she has passed on as well. Actually passed on 4 years prior to George Michael's passing on December 25th, 2016. Back to the video. It was filmed on location in Miami, Florida, back in February 1984. Beautiful locales like Coconut Grove, Watson Island, and the final part of the video shows George Michael leaning out on a top floor balcony of Miami's Grove Towers. And at that time, how did they do that? Because they didn't have like what we have now with our, camera work that can be done on a drone. So I'm assuming they had to fly by with a helicopter to get that shot, because it's a shot from outside of him looking over at the balcony. Filming took place in around hotels and marinas, and apparently, according to the Wham manager at the time, Napier Bell, Michael was unhappy with the rushes of the first day filming. Like I mentioned earlier, he felt his hair looked dreadful, too long, too posy, too poofy. Like I said, some said almost looks like Lady Di's hair. So he had his sister Melanie flown to Miami to cut it, and the first day's filming was reshot, sending the video about 17,000 pounds over budget, which is a lot of money here, but imagine in 1984, and triggering coverage in the British tabloids. According to the producer John Roseman, the production was an effing disaster, although it turned out a beautiful production. And according to Michael's co-star, the lady that plays the girlfriend that he cheats on, the kissing scene had to be reshot after footage was lost, which she didn't mind at the time, right? And the video, like I said, has hit 1.5 billion. So the rest is history. So back to Careless Whisper. It's about a man who has guilty feet, has got no rhythm because he cheated on his beautiful girlfriend. And ironically, the misheard song lyric is, "Pain is the whore you'll find," which is double meaning when really it's pain is all you'll find. If you have any great suggestions like this misheard song lyric, please send it to any of our sites like Facebook, Instagram, or just an old-fashioned email to misheard, MISSHEARD songs @gmail.com. Till then, keep singing those songs wrong. Bye.